Hi, I am Renmark, and welcome to our video tutorial about web development using PHP and MySQL. In this video, we will talk about Lesson 1, which is Web Development Overview. So let's get started. Web page. Web page is a document available on the World Wide Web. Kapag sinabi nating web page in general, that is a special type of file na typically ay available at in-access natin over the World Wide Web. Sila yung madalas na pinupuntahan natin kapag nagsusurf tayo sa internet. Web pages are stored on web servers and can be viewed using a web browser. So, since accessible sila over the internet, isa lang ang ibig sabihin yan. These files, which are the web pages, are not actually stored on your local machine. They are stored on a centralized location we typically call web servers. At in-open natin sila gamit yung mga browser natin, like for example, yung Google Chrome, Firefox, and kung desperado ka talaga, Internet Explorer, no? So, joke. A web page can contain huge information, including text, graphics, audio, video, and hyperlinks. Also, one of the primary reasons why we browse these web pages is para maka-obtain tayo ng information from the internet. And this information is not just limited to text. Pwedeng mga images, no, na sinesearch natin kapag need natin. Mga audio files kagaya ng mga music na piniplay natin, mga video na pinapanood natin, at mga hyperlinks na nire-redirect tayo para makapag-navigate tayo sa ibang parts ng mga web pages or ibang parts ng mga website all over the internet. So as a summary, kapag sinabi nating web page, don't get me wrong, it is the actual file na ino-open natin gamit ang isang browser through the internet para maka-access ng information na present do sa mga file na yon. Okay? Next. Take note that a collection daw of linked web pages on a web server is known as a website. There is unique uniform resource locator or URL is associated with each web page. Kapag sa isang web server meron kang collection of different web pages that are connected to each other and work as one, tatawagin natin yung mga yon as website. Again, no? Kapag single file, that is the web page. Then kapag collection of web page, tatawagin natin siyang website. Okay? Maliwanag sana yon. Next, we have yung mga types of web pages. The first type of a web page is a static web page. Static web pages are also known as flat or stationary web page. Stationary means not moving or hindi gumagalaw. Don't get me wrong, because kapag sinabi nating stationary, that doesn't pertain do sa mga animations na present sa isang web page. A web page can have multiple animation but still a static web page. Ang ibig sabihin lang kasi ng static is fixed or hindi nababago nang hindi ka nag-e-edit ng source code. Sabi nga dito, they are loaded on the client's browser as exactly they are stored on the web server. Such web pages contains only static information. Users can only read the information but can't do any modification or interact with the information. Pwede mo lang basahin yung mga information na present pero walang interaction na pwedeng gawin. Okay, linawin lang natin yung meaning ng interaction, no? Kapag sinabi nating interaction, that is the user's ability na makapagbigay ng command dun sa isang component, and in this case, that is our web page. Kapag static kasi yung web page at nakapost kunwari yung text, hindi ka pwedeng mag-like or mag-comment, no? Interaction ang tawag natin sa mga yan. If may nakita ka magandang video, hindi mo siya pwedeng i-share, and again, sharing is a form of interaction. At yun yung mga bagay na hindi kayang gawin ng isang static web page. Hanggang palink-link lang yung pwede mong gawin o palipat-lipat ka lang ng mga web pages. Static web pages are created using only HTML. Static web pages are only used when the information is no more required to be modified. So, ito, para sa mga students ko, no, yung previously na ginawa ninyong mga website, kagaya ng HTML, CSS, at Bootstrap project ninyo, ay classified lang as static web page. Okay? Next. I have here a figure that shows how the process of HTTP request works. So first, we have a web browser. Meron tayong client. Pag sinabi natin client, ako yan, or ikaw, or let's say tayo, na nakaharap dun sa ating end device. Pag sinabi natin end device, pwedeng this is a desktop computer, a laptop, or pwede rin yung mga smartphones natin. Ngayon, para makapag-browse tayo ng mga web pages, typically, bubuksan natin yung application na tinatawag nating web browser. Sa mga nabanggit kong end devices, may mga web browser tayo doon, kagaya ng Firefox and Google Chrome and so on. So, kung binuksan ko for example yung Firefox and then nag-open ako ng isang web page or website, typically, yung request for web page na yan ay itatype natin yung tinatawag nga natin kagaya kanina na URL o yung Uniform Resource Locator. Kunwari, ang pangalan ng website is www.samplestaticwebsite.com. Walang ganon. Invento ko lang yon, no? Pero para mag-gets lang natin. Upon pressing enter, our end device will try to connect to the internet and then with using of complex routing protocols na discuss ko previously sa inyo na yung mga students ko, Cisco, i-redirect yan papunta doon sa server o yung web server kung saan nakalagay o nakapoint yung domain na www.samplestaticwebpage.com. And then, ang gagawin ng web server, hahanapin niya yung file na nire-request mo. Pagkatapos niya makuha yung file, i-return niya yung file as HTML file. Yung HTML file, magta-travel yun over the internet. And then, ang protocol na ginagamit natin, by the way, will be HTTP or kapag secured, that would be HTTPS. So, ira-route pabalik yung file at pag na-receive ng file o kapag na-receive ng client yung file, that file is in a form of an HTML code. So, yung HTML code na yan ay i-render dun sa web browser, i-interpret yan ng web browser, i-assemble niya, depende doon sa kung ano yung HTML code na bumalik, at pagkatapos niya itong ma-assemble, meron ka ng web page. So, ganun yung proseso kapag static. Ang client, nagre-request lang ng file o yung HTML file na nakasave doon sa isang web server. I-return ng web server in a form of HTML at si client yung mag-assemble ng output doon sa browser. Okay? Next. We have yung dynamic web page. Dynamic web page shows different information at different point of time. It is possible to change a portion of a web page without loading the entire web page. It has been made possible using yung tinatawag nating Ajax technology. And a very good example of this para makarelate kayong lahat is yung Facebook. Pansinin nyo sa Facebook, no? Diba kapag meron kang post or pinost, for example, kunwari, may mga spelling error ka o kaya nag-rant ka doon sa Facebook mo, pero naduwag ka, kasi keyboard warrior ka, kasi may pumalag sa'yo, pinalagan yung post mo, at gusto mong i-edit yung post mo. Typically, from Facebook, kung doon ka mismo nag-post, pwede ka mag-edit ng post directly sa Facebook, di ba? Pero hindi mo naman dina-download yung buong source code, tapos pinapalitan yung mga text na nakaipit doon sa pagitan ng paragraph tags. Hindi naman natin ginagawa yun, di ba? The mere fact na pwede kang mag-add, mag-update, mag-delete ng information doon sa web page without manually changing yung source code, that, my friends, is considered a dynamic web page. Ngayon, kapag may ginawa kang changes sa isang page, hindi mo na kailangan mag-refresh ng page, di ba? Basta na lang uusog yung laman dun sa ilalim. Ang tawag naman natin dun sa technology na yun is Ajax. So, ang Ajax hindi natin covered sa lesson natin ito. Pero abang-abangan nyo yung topic na yan sa mga ibang tutorials na gagawin ko. Okay? Next. Dati, kapag sinabi nating dynamic web page, server-side scripting lang ang pwedeng gamitin. Pero, now, the times have changed. Pwede na din yung mga client-side scripting to create dynamic web pages. I-differentiate natin yung dalawa. Kapag sinabi nating server-side dynamic web page, sila yung mga web page na dinedevelop gamit ang mga server-side scripting language kagaya ng topic natin for this tutorial, which is PHP. Bale, yung processing nangyayari sa server, then after matapos ng processing, i-return lang to sa browser in a form of HTML. Magkikita at maintindihan nyo to further kapag nandun na tayo sa mga future lessons natin. Pero yun ang bird's eye view. Kapag sinabi naman nating client-side dynamic web page, sila yung mga page na napaprocess gamit yung mga client-side scripting language kagaya ng JavaScript. Then, if may mga changes sa content, imbis na mag-reload yung buong page ay yung specific DOM element na lang ng file yung tina-target nating palitan. Kaya mas mabilis siya, no? At hindi rin nagre-refresh yung mga page na yon. Ayan, a good example tulad ng sinabi ko is Facebook. So again, no, I have here a figure that shows how the process of HTTP request, pero this time, dynamic page request naman na handled by a PHP. So, subukan natin. Meron tayong web browser. Kagaya pa rin kanina, yung browser na yan, naka-install yan sa isang end device. Pwedeng laptop, desktop, or smart device. Ngayon, magre-request ka ng web page, so itatype mo yung URL. Kunwari, www.facebook.com. And then, after pressing enter, your router will try to connect to the internet and then magkakaroon ng routing at mapupunta ka doon sa web server ng Facebook. Ngayon, kapag nag-request ka ng web page, no, the web server will going to process your request. Ang mangyayari, gagamit siya ng tinatawag nating PHP interpreter. Lahat ng mga dynamic code o lahat ng mga PHP code, gagawin muna niya yan doon sa server. I-assemble niya, i-compute niya, no? Lahat ng processing mangyayari muna doon sa loob ng server. If kailangang mag-access sa database, then si PHP will automatically connect doon sa MySQL. Walang problema doon. Magpe-perform yung PHP ng query, and then after niya makapag-perform ng query, then babalik yan doon sa PHP layer, at yung PHP layer kapag tapos na lahat, ang mangyayari, i-assemble niya lang to ulit in a form of HTML. Meaning, kahit dynamic web page yan, ang ibig sabihin, pag babalik at babalik yan sa'yo, no, that is still an HTML page. So, i-assemble pa rin yan doon sa browser mo in a form of HTML. Makikita ninyo yan, no? Mas maintindihan ninyo yan kapag nandun na tayo. So, don't worry. Pero ang point lang natin dito, no? Ang gusto ko lang ma-emphasize is that sa PHP, nagkakaroon ng execution ng code doon sa side ng web server. Hindi lang doon sa client side. Next, we have yung tinatawag nating scripting languages. Scripting languages. First things first, up to this point, this is still a debate sa IT community. Pinag-uusapan pa rin, no, up to this point, if PHP daw ba and other similar technologies is considered daw ba na programming language. Okay? Siguro sa video na to, no, may possibility na makakuha ko ng dislike or negative comments from the public people, no? Pero I really stand with this. PHP is more of a scripting language than a programming language. At lalo na syempre yung HTML, no, for God's sake. Hahampasin kita ng baseball bat sa ulo, no, kapag pinilit mo na yung HTML is a programming language, no. So, don't, no. Wag, sabi nga do sa ad ni Duterte, wag mong gagawin yon. So, kidding aside, HTML kasi is a markup language, period. Markup language. And PHP, being a scripting language, is partly a programming language. Pero hindi lang kasi proper na sabihing programming language siya. Let's just say, no, na all scripting language are programming languages, but not all programming languages are scripting language. Or mas madaling term, no, all dogs are animals, but not all animals are dogs. So if nakuha niyo yung point ko, no, ganun yun. Pag sinabi natin PHP, it's a scripting language, and all scripting language are programming languages, pero it's still proper na tawagin siyang scripting language. General kasi yung category ng programming language at mas specific naman yung scripting language. And by the way, scripting language are interpreted and not compiled. unlike a programming language. Also, take note that scripting language is used to create dynamic web pages and not complex programs or software applications. Okay? Next. There are two types of scripting language. The first one is yung tinatawag nating client-side scripting. Client-side scripting refers to the programs that are executed on client-side. Client-side scripts contains the instruction for the browser to be executed in response to the certain user's action. Meaning, yung mga scripts will be executed not by the server but by your local machine. A good example of this is JavaScript. Take note that client-side scripting programs can be embedded directly into the HTML files or also can be kept as separate files. So, kung umabot lang sana kayo doon sa JavaScript, no, dalawa kasi yan pwede kang mag-inline JavaScript, no, nandun mismo sa loob ng HTML or kagaya ng CSS, pwede mo silang ilabas at i-separate ng file. Pero pag sinabi natin client-side scripting, no, yung mga processing nangyayari lang doon sa mismong client machine. Hindi mo kailangan ng server dito para mapagana mo yung mga scripts natin. Okay? Next, meron din tayong tinatawag na server-side scripting. Server-side scripting is a technique used in web development which involves employing script on a web server, which produces a response customized for each user's or yung tinatawag natin mga clients request to the website. The alternative is for the web server itself to deliver a static web page. Kagaya nga nung in-explain ko kanina, no? Pag bumalik dun sa client yan, that is already in a form of static web page or HTML. So kapag sinabi nating server-side scripting, yung execution ng code nangyayari yan dun sa loob ng server at hindi dun sa local machine nung ginagamit mo o yung user. Ito yung kung anong napag-usapan natin kanina do sa figure na naipakita ko. Ang web server, after niya matapos yung execution ng script, is magpoproduce siya ng HTML source code na i-deliver do sa client side in a form of static web page. Ngayon, yung client na lang yung bahalang mag-assemble ng code para merong lumitaw na output doon sa web browser. Scripts can be written in any of a number of server-side scripting languages that are available. Server-side scripting is distinguished from client-side scripting where embedded scripts such as JavaScript are run client-side in a web browser but both techniques are often used. Honestly, no, marami yung mga scripting language na pwedeng gamitin for server-side scripting at isa lamang ang PHP sa mga yon. Pero up to this point, no, during the time of this recording, PHP is by far the most used server-side scripting language in the world. It takes up just about 80% of all the web pages in the world. Imagine, 80% ng lahat ng mga web page sa buong mundo, lahat yan PHP. Disclaimer, no, at the time of this recording. Kaya hindi nila pwedeng sabihin na ang PHP is a dying language. I highly doubt that. Napakataas din ng demand sa work pagdating sa PHP. Kaya if I were you, no, my dear students, dito talaga ako magfo-focus kasi andito ang pera at mga opportunities. That's a kind of misleading. Pertaining to web tech, okay? So, web tech doesn't matter kung anong technology yan, mapa ASP, PHP, or mag-aral kayo ng Node.js, yung mga frameworks sa JavaScript, gaya ng Angular, and so on. Basta web technology, no, nandun ang pera kasi nandun ang trabaho. Although hindi ko naman kayo dinidiscourage na mag-aral ng mobile dev, pero mas madami kasi yung opportunity talaga pagdating sa web dev. Okay? So, next. We have PHP and PHP 7 as the latest version of PHP as of now. PHP is the most popular server-side scripting language for creating dynamic web pages. PHP stands for Hypertext Preprocessor. It's actually a recursive acronym, no? Yun ang ibig sabihin talaga ng PHP. PHP Hypertext Preprocessor. So, pero acronym siya. PHP is a very popular and widely used open-source server-side scripting language to write dynamically generated web pages. PHP was originally created by Rasmus Lerdorf in 1994. It was initially known as Personal Homepage. So imagine, no, 1994 pa nung na-develop ni Rasmus Lerdorf yung PHP, pero up to this point ay ginagamit pa din natin siya. Ilang decades na lumipas, 2004, 2014, magtatatlong dekada na siya no, sa 2024. So, 30 years, imagine. Pero up to this point, no, nandun pa rin yung demand. PHP scripts are executed on the server and the result is sent to the web browser as plain HTML. PHP can be integrated with the number of popular databases including MySQL or sa US, pinopronounce nila to as MySQL, PostgreSQL, Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, Sysbase, and so on. This is one of the things kung bakit mahal na mahal ko ang PHP. Ito yung support at compatibility niya sa maraming mga popular na databases and easy integration talaga. Unlike sa ibang server-side scripting na nasubukan ko na dati, medyo mahirap silang integrate sa ibang databases. And sabi ko nga kanina, the current major version of PHP is PHP 7. PHP is a very powerful language yet easy to learn and use. Ano ang mga pwede natin gawin sa PHP? First, we can generate pages and files dynamically. So, dynamic yung pag-create natin ng mga pages and yung mga files. Hindi na natin kailangan silang statically na gawin sa HTML. We can automate, okay? We can create, open, read, write, and close files on the server. So, we can access files na nandun sa server in a form of text file. Actually, hindi na nga lang limited sa text file. Pwede tayong magbukas ng mga CSV, ng mga Excel file, magbasa ng Excel, magbasa at magsulat ng Word, no? Mag-output ng PDF files, and so on and so forth. We can also collect data from a web form such as yung user information, email, phone number, and etc. So, pwede daw tayo mag-collect ng data, no? Kagaya ng kapag nagsa-sign up kayo, nagre-register kayo ng account dun sa mga website na pinupuntahan ninyo. That's possible. We can also send emails to the users of your website. Ang pagsisend ng email, no, is actually powered by PHP. Hindi yan kayang gawin ng HTML. Kapag nakapag-send ka ng email gamit ang HTML, no, we can also send and receive cookies to track visitors of your website. So, namomonitor natin yung behavior ng mga visitor na sa website gamit ang cookies. Also, we can store, delete, and modify information in your database. Yan isa sa mga pinaka-importanting core functionality kung bakit tayo nagpi-PHP. Kasi meron tayong database functionality and integration. We can also restrict unauthorized access to your website. Kagaya nung kunwaring enrollment system na ginawa natin. Or kahit na lang sa Facebook, no? If hindi ka magre-register, hindi ka pwede makapasok doon sa account mo. And we can also encrypt data for safe transmission over the internet. Ilan lamang ito sa mga bagay na pwede nating gawin sa PHP. Napakadami pa, no? Pero ito lang yung mga ibinigay sa atin. So, how about the advantages of PHP over other languages? If you're familiar with other server-side languages like yung ASP.NET or yung Java, you might be considering or wondering what makes PHP so special. There are several advantages why one should choose PHP. First is easy to learn. PHP is easy to learn and use. For beginner programmers who just started out in web development, PHP is often considered as a preferred choice of language to learn. I will testify to this, no? Ito talaga ang pinakamadaling araling server-side scripting sa buong mundo. Palagi ko naman sinasabi sa mga past students ko na kapag marunong kang mag-Java, hindi ka na mahihirapan sa PHP. Kaya nga siya yung pinakaunang tutorial na ginawa ko sa YouTube kasi andun yung modern fundamentals ng programming language nowadays at wala na sa C language. Kapag marunong ka kasing mag-Java, napakadali nang i-adapt ang PHP. Konting-konti na lang yung changes niya. So, kung paano gamitin ang if then else, ganun din sa PHP. Paano mag-perform ng looping, kung paano ang syntax niya sa Java, ganun din ang syntax niya sa PHP. So, hindi sila nagkakalayo ng syntax at ng approach. Kaya pag batak ka sa Java, hindi ka mahihirapan sa PHP. Next is open source. PHP is an open source project. It is developed and maintained by a worldwide community of developers who makes its source code freely available to download and use. Next good thing about PHP is that PHP is open source. Period. No? Maliban sa it is free to use, maraming mga developers sa buong mundo na nag-i-improve at nagko-contribute at nagme-maintain sa source code nito. So, aasahan natin sa mga ilang taong pang dadaan, patuloy na i-maintain ang source code ng PHP. Next is portability. PHP runs on various platforms such as Microsoft Windows, Linux, macOS, and etc. And it is compatible with almost all server used today such as Apache, IIS. Yung IIS is dating ginagamit lang sa ASP or ASP.NET, and etc. Meron na nga yung mga bago ngayon, yung NGIX, no? Na pwedeng gamitin. Cross-platform din ang PHP, no? Ano man yung operating system na gamit mo, pwede ka makapag-develop ng PHP sa mga to. Compatible din siya sa halos lahat ng klase ng mga web servers na ginagamit natin ngayon. Pang-apat is fast performance. Scripts written in PHP usually executes or run faster than those written in other scripting language like ASP, Ruby, Python, Java, and etc. Again, this is also 100% true. Kahit mag-benchmark pa tayo at i-compare yung execution time ng PHP compared sa kanyang mga competitors, mananalo pa din ang PHP in terms of speed. Especially ngayon sa PHP 7. As in, sobrang bilis talaga ng execution ng code ng PHP 7. Sa ngayon, ang nakikita ko lang na competitor o balakid sa PHP is yung Node.js. Kasi ang Node.js may capability siya ng asynchronous processing. At there are certain processing na talagang mas mabilis pagdating kay Node.js. So, si Node.js may potential talaga siyang i-replace si PHP in the future. Pero, wag muna ngayon, Sa ngayon, I'm still rooting for PHP. Next is vast community. Since PHP is supported by the worldwide community, finding help or documentation related to PHP online is extremely easy. So, napakadali ng paghahanap ng support pagdating sa PHP. Madami kasing developers na gumagamit sa PHP kaya yung support sobrang laki. Honestly, payo ko sa mga students ko or sa mga guest viewers natin, isa sa mga factor na dapat nyong i-consider kapag pipili ka ng language na aaralin at gagamitin in the future is yung community support do sa language na pag-aaralan mo. I tried to study certain languages na malit yung community, walang ya. Ang hirap maghanap ng mga solutions. Ang hirap maghanap ng tulong do sa mga problems ko kapag hindi ko napapagana yung certain feature na gusto ko. Hindi kagaya sa PHP, sa Stack Overflow, ang daming available na source code at tulong. Kaya nga sabi ko palagi, Stack Overflow lang, sapat na. Next is we have a tip about PHP. Do you know that some huge websites like Facebook, Yahoo, Flickr, and Wikipedia are built using PHP? Yes, Most of the major content management system such as WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, and Magneto are also built in PHP. And yes, my friends, is a bragging rights for PHP. Again, imagine, the 80% ng lahat ng mga web pages sa mundo still powered by PHP. Links. Nais ko pong pasalamatan yung mga links o yung mga pinagkunan ko ng content para sa tutorial nating ito. So, ito yung listahan nila. And that's the end of lesson 1. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you on our next lesson. If you love this video, kindly drop a thumbs up and subscribe. Also, hit that notification bell icon if you want to get notified whenever I post a new lesson. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on our next video.